All right, the election of President Barack Hussein Obama. Okay, we have Barack Obama here against the Republican John McCain, who was a war hero at the time. Uh, Barack Obama is about as Democrat as a Democrat gets. Okay, he is very liberal. He is much like Joe Biden in his politics. By the way, Joe Biden was elected as his vice president. Okay, for 8 years. John McCain, on the other hand, he says he's a Republican, but his actions and his policies say otherwise. He's more like a Democrat that's in the center between Republicans and Democrats. All right, so let's go through a few points of the election. So Barack Obama came to national attention after speaking at the 2004 Democratic National Convention and winning the 2004 Illinois state race. He announced his intention to run for president in February 2007 and concentrated on a few things. He wanted an end to the war in Iraq. He wants to increase energy independence, basically stopping the flow of fossil fuels to America, which is going to increase gas prices. And at one point, folks, I thought this right here, back when I was actually going through this stuff, I thought Barack Obama was definitely going to lose because at one point he was asked a question and his response was he wanted gasoline to be $10 a gallon. And the point is, if we make gasoline $10 a gallon, then people will move towards renewable energy and they will start to drive electric vehicles instead. I thought the American people would never vote for a man that wants gas to be $10 a gallon, but they did anyway. A program of universal health care. He wants the government to pay for most of the health care of the poor, and he wants everybody in the country to have health care. This eventually is going to culminate in the Affordable Health Care Act, or what everybody calls Obamacare. Okay? Barack Obama defeated Hillary Rodham Clinton to obtain the Democratic nomination in 2008. He would later choose her as his Secretary of State. In 2008, something really terrible happened. We had the housing market in America crashed. Basically what had happened was, this is the fault of two presidents, one Democrat and one Republican. Okay, so what basically happened was Bill Clinton, during his administration, he made a law that he got Congress to make this law that said that you cannot deny somebody a loan for a house based on their ability to pay, which is insane. It basically meant that you had to give people that could not afford a loan, you had to give them the loan for the house. The next president made it worse, okay? But not completely his fault. See, September 11, 2001, George Bush Jr. was in office. And the economy started to collapse because of the terrorist attacks of September 11th. So in order to get money flowing throughout the economy and to jumpstart the economy, President Bush asked the Federal Reserve, which is our nation's central bank, which is not owned by the government, by the way. It's a private bank, which should make you kind of nervous. This central bank, he asked them to lower interest rates on loans to 0% interest. And so we had a bubble in the housing market where prices went up and up and up because of these different policies. On the one hand, Clinton says you don't have to actually be able to pay for your loan to be able to get the house. The second one, George Bush, says it's going to be 0% interest. So people not only refinanced their own houses, but they went out and they bought multiple houses. And the more houses that get bought, the higher the price is going to go. And so housing prices doubled and then tripled. And a house that was worth $50,000 in 1995 or so was now worth $150,000 and maybe $200,000. It was getting out of hand and ridiculous. It got to a certain point where it was much cheaper to build a new house than it was to buy an existing house. And when people figured that out, they started realizing that houses were overvalued, that they were not worth what people were asking. And so everybody all at once in 2007, 2008 started putting all these extra houses on the market to be sold. And the more houses that went up for sale, the farther the prices dropped. And so you had the situation where prices are going down dramatically, and you got some poor sucker who bought a house for $300,000 in 2007, and now in 2008, the same house is only worth $100,000, but he still owes $300,000 to the bank. This is what's called being upside down in your mortgage. It's when you owe more than the house is worth. And so the housing market crashed. After that, the job markets crashed, and we were heading into another Great Depression. And President Barack Obama put off this Great Depression by creating a $1 trillion stimulus package for the United States, which is the biggest stimulus package America had ever seen up until that point. It looks small by today's standards because the current president is spending trillions and trillions of dollars every year. But back then it was a major thing. So 2008, the collapsing economy hurt the Republicans, helping Obama to defeat the Republican John McCain and to become the first African American president. Now, Barack Obama is not 100% black. He is half white. His mother is white. His father is actually African. He's from Nigeria. And there was a big complaint of whether or not Barack Obama was actually born in Hawaii or not. This is called the birther movement. And President Donald Trump, who was not president yet, he was just a television star at the time and a billionaire. President Donald Trump offered $1 million to be able to see Barack Obama's birth certificate, and Barack Obama did not provide that for President Trump. Okay, so there was this big conspiracy theory out there. By the way, folks, Barack Obama was in fact born in Hawaii. Okay, he did release the information later. So for those of you who think he wasn't, it's not true. He was born in Hawaii. All right, next one. Candidates in 2008 presidential election showed an unprecedented use of new media, such as blogs, text messages, and online videos, especially YouTube. YouTube was only a year or two old. Which age group showed the highest voter turnout in response to the utilization of the new media? All right, guys, you don't have to know crap to answer this question. Nothing, all right? Nothing more than you already know. We're talking about a presidential candidate using blogs, text, and YouTube videos. Which age group is going to respond the best? Well, probably the youngest ones, right? Makes sense. If it was TikTok and X, or they used to call it Twitter or whatever, it would still be the youngest ones that are going to respond to that the best. All right. After his inauguration, President Obama issued several executive orders. He ordered the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Iraq by 2010. Okay, so we ended that war. He wanted to reverse President George W. Bush's ban on concerning federal support for an abortion. Okay, so moving on. Okay, the 2008 recession. Considered the worst economic recession since the Great Depression, it impacted much of the industrialized world. It was sparked by a financial crisis that had its origin in the speculative home lending practices. Speculation, again, is whenever you buy something and you hope it goes up in price so you can sell it, like a stock or a house, okay? Inadequate regulation and oversight forced the collapse in the housing prices, and a collapsing housing market led to the increases in oil and food prices. Several major banks went bankrupt and sought to get help from the federal government. President George W. Bush wanted the government to buy troubled mortgage assets. So all these loans that could not be paid back because of President Clinton and President Bush's policies, President Bush said the government needs to buy these bad loans where people are upside down in their houses to give relief to the people. And they did that for a long time. Instead, the government helped the banks, okay? The government helped the banks as well. They did that as well. This in turn sparked a number of controversial bailouts where the government helped private industry. All right, here we go. By the way, a bailout is when the government gives you money that you don't deserve, so that way your company doesn't sink. All right, next one. Since the 1980s, the federal government has played a role in assisting private industry by arranging a series of bailouts. Okay, that's what that is. We're moving on. The Great Depression of the 1930s and the economic crisis beginning in 2008 both caused hardship. Which statement indicates an important difference between these two economic crises? Okay, so they're going to want to know in this question, during which crisis did the average American owe more? So basically in the Great Depression, folks, you might have owed for your house, maybe a car, a couple of appliances, washing machines, dryers, stove, stuff like that. But in the 2008 housing crisis, because people were buying multiple houses, they owed for multiple houses. So the average American was much deeper in debt during the 2008 crisis than the 1930s Great Depression. So let's see, that's going to be right there. Okay, Americans had a higher debt on average during the more recent crisis than the Great Depression. That is correct. All right, moving on. Major early domestic legislation. Okay, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. This is that $1 trillion stimulus package created by President Obama. This program increased federal spending for health care, infrastructure, education, along with various incentives to try to help the economy to recover from the 2008 recession. I remember the point of this was to give what Barack Obama called shovel-ready jobs. Basically to give jobs to people. If you're sensing a trend here, if it's seeming a little bit familiar, this is exactly how Franklin Roosevelt dealt with the Great Depression. He gave out jobs through the New Deal. Well, Barack Obama's favorite president was the socialist Franklin Roosevelt. Okay? And so he does the same thing that Franklin Roosevelt was doing. Now, unfortunately, a lot of money was wasted during this time. During the 2008 recession, the $1 trillion stimulus package, this is where we get the $10 million spent to watch zero gravity frog mating in space. Okay, that was in there. Another thing was free golf carts, because what Barack Obama had said was if you buy an electric vehicle that you get a $5,000 tax credit. But they didn't define what electric vehicle meant. And so because of that, a golf cart is categorized as an electric vehicle. So a golf cart costs about $5,000. So if you go buy a golf cart, the government on your taxes will give you $5,000, basically free golf carts. And the only thing that stopped that was whenever the country ran out of golf carts. So moving on, there was a lot of criticism of the Obama stimulus package. Which statement best compares to the immediate responses of President George W. Bush and Barack Obama to the financial crisis of 2007? So which of these statements is something that both Bush did and Barack Obama? All right, let's read it. Bush reduced regulations of banks and other businesses while Obama increased regulations? No. Bush cut taxes and reduced government spending? No, he didn't. He actually had his own stimulus package. Both presidents used large-scale intervention to end the panic and to reduce damage to the economy. That sounds like the correct answer. Bush gave a stimulus package, and then Obama gave a stimulus package, and it stopped the Great Depression from coming back. It was a bad recession, but we didn't go quite as low as the Great Depression. But we were able to claw our way out of it by basically printing our way out of it. We printed money, and it caused inflation to occur, but that got us out of this temporarily. I think what it really did, folks, is just kick the can farther down the road. Every time we get into trouble, we print our way out of it, and that's devaluing our currency, and eventually the US dollar is going to collapse, and it's going to be worth nothing. And we're going to have to restart our economy somehow with a new currency. The current government of Joe Biden is trying to use digital currency. They're trying to move from paper dollars to digital dollars so they can inflate the currency without printing any money. All right, how did the U.S. government respond to the financial collapse of major banks, insurance, and automobile corporations in 2008? There we go. Okay, it provided large-scale financial backing to those companies. All right, that's a bailout. That's basically what that is. All right.